I live in an apartment complex. We've been living here for about a decade. Where we live, there are a lot of stray cats here, and some people have dogs. Some of these dogs chased the cats around, and some of the dogs killed them, and some of them injured them. I'm not blaming the dogs though, it's just nature. I am, however, blaming the bad owners. I'm just saying how most people here do not like cats at all, and that goes for the people in our apartment building. All of them hate cats. We have a grandpa who lives downstairs who swats at them with a fly swatter, hits them, and threatens them. He's an awful guy with 3 children, and their father and the grandma hang around a lot outside, and I often heard the grandma teaching her children to hate the cats as well. Now on the 2nd floor, this is where the evil neighbors reside. On the 2nd floor, there's a back door that leads outside as the 2nd floor is on a hill. We often leave back there at night to give the cats food, and we found it quite difficult to do so in these past months. Now we have to go out back and then walk towards the side of the building to give the cats our leftovers. A few months ago, my dad came in and said how the neighbors are putting spices like paprika, garlic powder, and other spices on their windowsill and air conditioner to hurt the cats if they smell it. I immediately went outside and ripped some dirt off the ground and wiped it off and splashed some water to get rid of the dirt, because obviously if you do that, you're a piece of crap. What's worse is they literally own a cat, so it might be abused. They even put notes on their windows to not wipe it down. They stopped for a few weeks, but yesterday they put a ton of crap on their window and I wiped it off. And then today they put a security camera on the window, and I went outside and took a picture for evidence. Now we have a note from the manager on our door saying that I wiped it down, and they have zero proof of this, so I'm saying I didn't. But they're saying that I tried to get under their windows and break in. It's just a warning notice, but I'm not sure what to do. I really love the cats. I grew up with them. But I just don't understand these grown-ass adults having beef with a minor and some cats, seeing as they have their own cat. I would also like to add that the managers are horrible. They hate animals and they put notes on all of the apartment doors to not feed them or give them water. But what they don't realize is the cats are saving them from lawsuits, seeing as snakes like copperheads keep lurking around here, and some snakes have even gotten inside the apartments. The managers are also buddy-buddy with other residents and let them break the rules. They literally didn't kick their friends out when 2 grown-ass adults jumped me and my older brother because we called him names when he abused a cat right in front of us. That's just how evil these people are. I'm a 25-year-old female, and I got my first apartment about a year ago. When I moved in, I was nervous but excited about the opportunity. A few weeks after moving in, I bought a puppy so that I wouldn't feel so lonely. My key broke in my door, so I had to call maintenance to come fix it and let me into my apartment. The maintenance guy was instantly obsessed with my dog, but my dog was immediately afraid of him. I passed it off as nothing since she was a puppy, and I figured she might just act that way around everyone new. A few weeks later, my dishwasher broke, so I called maintenance to come out again. I was working on crate training my dog, so I stated it was fine for them to come while I was at work since she would be in her crate, and at most just might annoy them with mild barking. Upon arriving home from work, I found several places on my carpet where my dog had an accident. I thought that I must have missed it before I left for work. I took her outside to go for a walk, and the maintenance guy stopped me and informed me that he let my dog out while working on my dishwasher. He informed me that I was starving her by keeping her locked up all day, and that I wasn't a good pet owner. He then stated he could take better care of her. I was way too shocked to say anything. I talked to my dog's vet, and the vet confirmed I was doing everything right for crate training my puppy. For several weeks after this, the maintenance guy would stop to attempt to pet my dog whenever he saw us. I started taking different routes for walks and began driving to a nearby park to avoid him. This was when I realized my dog didn't react to any other stranger the way she reacted to him, hiding behind me and aggressively barking. He also began making comments about my appearance. I mentioned the occurrences to my parents whenever they visited. My mom thought that I might just be overreacting to living alone for the first time. She walked my dog with me around the complex. The maintenance guy stopped again and proceeded to make a joke about stealing my dog. We got back from the walk, and my mom then stated we were going to go out to buy video cameras for the apartment. After that, things seemed to calm down. Whenever I had maintenance issues, a different guy would come out. My dog would still be uneasy, but wouldn't react aggressively. Today I had a maintenance issue again, and the original maintenance guy came out. My dog once again reacted aggressively. I held her to help calm her down, and she began to relax, but still remained on alert. The maintenance guy mentioned that he noticed my family had recently visited, and he then proceeded to ask if they had left. He then started asking me if I was in school or working. I responded by saying I was working. He then asked me how much money I make. I began feeling very uncomfortable, and I laughed off his question by stating that I didn't remember. He wouldn't accept this answer though, and he kept pestering me. I then responded by saying that I'm bad with numbers. He then kept pestering me about how many hours I work. My dog then began barking aggressively at him until he finally left. I honestly feel so creeped out right now. My lease is almost up, so I'm not really sure if I should complain and risk them retaliating by withholding my security deposit. I'm also nervous about filing a complaint and then living here for a few more weeks. This happened last night. For reference, I'm a 22-year-old female, and my husband is 25 years old. Last night, my husband woke me up at around 11:50 to tell me that someone's been knocking on our door and ringing our apartment doorbell for about 10 minutes on and off. He woke me up so I could possibly ID the person. Once I looked out our upstairs apartment window, I saw the man walking to his car in our apartment parking lot, which was across the street from our unit. He was wearing blue jeans and a gray t-shirt. He was a medium build, possibly a 30-year-old blonde man. He wasn't covering his face or anything, but the thing is, he was carrying what looked like resistance bands or rope. He sat in his car for around 3 minutes while I was on the phone with dispatch. Then he came back to our door and knocked hard for another few minutes. Dispatch advised me that the police were on their way, and they hung up. I started videoing the vehicle. I read out the tag number and make and model, and just watched as he put his car in park and reversed over and over again. Out of seemingly nowhere, he backed out of the parking lot and started rushing away, but not before the officer arrived and pulled him over. My downstairs neighbor knocked on my door and told me that he'd been peering into her little children's windows and was pounding on her door as well. She said that her husband had only left 1 minute before he started knocking at her door. She said that he saw her children through the window, and that's why he continued knocking. Our doors are right next to one another, so he probably didn't know what door he wanted opened. He was watching us as well through our upstairs windows, so I turned all of the lights out and shut the blinds while I called dispatch. The police never contacted us for a statement. I've reached out to dispatch about an update, and I'm waiting to see if any action was actually taken. We're keeping our eyes peeled to see if he's been following us. I'm replacing my porch light bulbs with motion detectors and putting bars on our window and door tracks. My neighbors and our families are panicked, to say the least. He was outside for about 25 to 30 minutes. To the knocking man who had bad intentions, please don't come back. Okay, so I have an update. I'm trained in firearm usage, and I now live in a state where I can open carry, and the background check is really quick. We're going this weekend to get a firearm. My husband will be taking some classes as he came from somewhere where owning a gun is illegal, so he's never handled one. I'm still waiting on a call from the responding officer. I have his badge number and name, so if they don't reach out to me today or tonight, I'm gonna call the substation. If they didn't do anything, I'm gonna go ahead and make a suspicious persons case for the paper trail. We had no odd encounters last night. However, while I was looking at the video I took, I remembered that car. I was walking my dog at 8 p.m. about a week ago for him to pee, and this car was driving really slow through the parking lot and parked a few spots down from where I was letting my dog sniff. They just sat there with the car running. When I tell you my ears started ringing and I got an awful feeling, I'm not joking. I turned around and went home, didn't give my dog the chance to pee, and shut every door and window. I think this man has been stalking out our apartment building along with me and my neighbors. I think he wanted to get in where those children are. I'll update more when I have new information. Update number 2. It's been a week since the incident. I called dispatch today because I never received a follow-up from the responding officer. A sergeant from the police department called me back to give me more information. He said that they pulled over the man, ran him to make sure there were no warrants, and asked him what he was doing. He told the officer that he was meeting up with an acquaintance. The officer let him go with no further questions. Not only that, the responding officer is also a sergeant. I about lost my mind with this. The sergeant I spoke to today stated that he should have looked into it more, but that it was obviously an attempted burglary, sexually motivated and or with intent to commit a felony. The responding officer is supposed to call me tonight when he gets on duty. I'm honestly livid at all this. Zero due diligence for this case, but there's not even a case. No case number, just a documented police contact. I'll give more info when I have it. Okay, so here's the final update. The officer finally called me. Here's how the conversation went. Hello? I answered groggily. It was well past midnight. Hello, miss. I was told you'd have some questions about an incident a few nights ago. Yes, about Thursday. I want to know what that man told you he was doing. You know, he was looking in the windows and carrying potential restraints. I'm not sure if that was related to you. I stopped him, ran his tags, and he told me that he was meeting up with a guy from a dating app. He seemed forthcoming and open with his motive for being there. Meeting up with? Wait, you're telling me he was meeting up with someone by looking in windows and knocking on 2 different doors for 20 minutes? I was shocked and still not fully awake. Like I said, he seemed forthcoming and honest with me. So was Jeffrey Dahmer was the first thing that came to my mind. With resistant bands? Like workout bands? Ma'am, he had a lot of belongings in his car, so he probably just had them in there. Right, but bringing them to a hookup? Knocking on multiple doors? He saw the little girls through the window. He waited until my neighbor's husband left until knocking. That's on tape, officer. I checked in with the apartment management after the incident. Well, I'm familiar with this individual, and I've been doing long drives throughout your complex just to make sure he doesn't come back. I haven't seen anything suspicious. If you don't have any more questions, I'll let you go, ma'am. This just doesn't make any sense to me, but thank you and goodbye. I hung up. I don't have much to say. I just feel so icky about that conversation. Nothing new has come of the situation. I haven't seen that man or the car. My mind is blown at the lack of follow-up or due diligence. I live in a suburb. It's not a busy one either. The police department has a small jurisdiction. I guess I'll just have to protect myself. I've lived in the beautiful city of Los Angeles for about 8 years now. My family in the Midwest always asks me, isn't there so much crime there? I don't know how you deal with it. But other than getting my car battery stolen a few times and the terrifying incident I'm about to share with y'all, I haven't really encountered much. This occurred in an apartment complex in Hollywood where I was living with 3 roommates about a year before the pandemic hit. For those who haven't been to Hollywood, let me set the scene. Most of it is the complete opposite of the glamorous, celebrity-filled mecca that were shown in the movies and pop culture. Maybe it really was glamorous at one point, and those remnants can be felt in some places. But now it seems to be a magnet for the sketchiest people you can imagine. It's extremely dirty, and sometimes it feels unsafe to walk the streets by yourself during the day, let alone at night. I'm a woman for context. You truly never know who you'll run into, and I don't mean that in a good way. Now for the apartment complex itself. As mentioned, this is a sketchy area, but for whatever reason, my complex didn't have any security on site, ever. I've lived in far less sketchy apartments in LA that had security patrolling the building at all times, so not having any just seemed a bit insane. To make things worse, the complex would rent out certain apartment units to Airbnb guests, meaning that randos were entering and leaving the building 24/7. Both of these elements contributed to what happened on the night in question, which also happened to be the day I moved in. So on this day, I was almost done moving all of my stuff in. It was around 9 p.m. that night, and all that was left to carry inside from my car was a suitcase full of clothes and a stack of records. I walked into the lobby of the complex carrying this stuff and waited for one of the 2 elevators to come. As I was waiting, a group of about 3 to 4 people entered the lobby who were clearly here for the Airbnb, judging by their luggage and wide-eyed sense of wonderment. As this group came in the lobby doors, which were entirely made of see-through glass by the way, I noticed a man lingering directly behind them. My first glance at this man filled me with a feeling of dread. You could just tell that this was someone off the street who did not need to be entering this building. He was tall with wild hair, wearing a filthy wife beater that I'm assuming was white at one point. He had a dangerous, dead-eyed quality that communicated to me that he was out of it, on drugs, drunk, or something else. Not sure, but I knew that I did not want this man in my building. The group of tourists continued chatting to each other, completely oblivious to this man trailing them. To my dismay, they allowed him to stagger into the lobby right behind them. Now myself, the tourists, and the man are all standing at the front of the elevators, the tourists still seemingly oblivious to how unhinged and potentially dangerous this man seemed. As both of the elevator doors opened at the same time, I scurried into one, and the tourist shuffled into the other. To my absolute horror, the man jumped into my elevator at the last second, and as the doors closed, I realized I was trapped in there alone with him. Now, I'm already a paranoid person who's way too addicted to horror and true crime, so I was freaking out at that point. I was standing as close to the front of the elevator as possible while the man stayed toward the back. It became more and more apparent that this was a man who was on something and incoherent, as he began muttering things I couldn't understand behind me. I had no idea if it was directed toward me, himself, or an unknown entity that only he could see, but I didn't turn around or look his way out of fear of encouraging it. His mutterings grew louder as I continued standing toward the front of the elevator, praying that he wouldn't try anything. The man then gruffly snarled, "Hey!" I shot him a look out of pure reflex to see him with an undone zipper touching his junk through his disgusting tighty-whities and staring at me with those dazed, unwell eyes. This entire sequence felt like an eternity, but was probably only a minute or so. As we finally reached my door and the doors opened, I walked out of the elevator as quickly but as calmly as possible, not wanting to provoke him further. I lived at the end of the hallway, a straight shot from the elevator. I was about halfway down the hallway, thinking that I was possibly in the clear, as he didn't seem to be following me, but I could still hear the man making incoherent noises from the elevator. I glanced behind me to see the man exit the elevator. "Oh!" he yelled at me, and that was it. I was not about to make it this far to get attacked now. I started running, still dragging my suitcase and holding my records, and in my panic, he started running after me. My stuff crashed to the ground as I dropped it and ran as fast as I could to my door, which was unlocked, thank God, due to my other roommates being home. As I slammed the door shut and locked it, the man reached our door, muttering and growling. I honestly don't even think he knew where he was or what he was doing. He seriously seemed so messed up. Maybe he only started running because I started running. Who knows? but thankfully I had made it to my door before him, thanks to his pause before coming after me. After I'd gotten inside my apartment, I was shaking and crying from the shock of it all, and sitting with my back against the door. My roommates had heard me scream as I was running down the hallway, which I wasn't even aware of doing, and they came to ask me what happened. I explained the story to them, but I was too scared to look outside of the peephole at that point. My roommates did it for me, and they said that the man was just wandering around our hallway looking lost for a few minutes before going back down the elevator. Surprisingly, that was the only crazy thing that really happened in that apartment. There was one time that the glass doors in the lobby got completely shattered by someone, and we were literally without doors for a while, leaving us exposed to anyone who wanted to wander in and do whatever they wanted. Oh well, I'm glad I made it out of that place alive. First off, I feel incredibly stupid saying this, but my front door was mistakenly left unlocked. Both myself and my boyfriend thought the other person locked it when we came inside. I almost always double check before bed just to make sure it's locked, but I was running on 3 hours of sleep, and it very unfortunately slipped my mind. That being said, to make things clear, my boyfriend works night, so he's almost always awake during the night and sleeps during the day. I work days, so my sleep schedule is nearly opposite. Every Saturday morning, I load up our 2 baskets of laundry into my car and wash it at my mom's house, since she lives close to where I work, and our apartment complex doesn't have a washer or dryer. I specifically do it every Saturday because it's the only day of the week that I get out of work in the morning and have time to do it, so it works out well. I have Sundays off, but I like to stay home that day, and since my mom's house is nearby work, it's not an issue. I called my boyfriend on my way home and chatted with him during my drive, and ended up getting the 2 of us Taco Bell for dinner. He came outside when I arrived home at about 6 p.m. to help me carry everything inside. Like I mentioned, we were both distracted by food and carrying everything that we both just forgot to lock the door upon coming back inside. Oftentimes I carry everything inside alone since he's usually still sleeping. We both ate dinner and then went to our bedroom to lay down. He fell right back asleep, but I was awake for a couple of hours playing my Switch. At about 8 p.m. I got up and put my Switch away and passed out very soon after in bed with him. My boyfriend got out of bed approximately an hour or 2 after I fell asleep, and then went into our computer room so he could play some games himself. I have no idea how I slept through all of this, but it's so horrifying to think about. He said he heard a small knock on our door, and then immediately a man walked into our front door and living room. The computer room where my boyfriend was sitting is directly down the hallway from the living room, so he stood up out of his chair and started walking toward the man, and then loudly said, "Hey man, what the hell are you doing? Who the hell are you?" Meanwhile, I'm asleep in the bedroom right off that same hallway that he was walking down to get into the living room and front door area. I very vaguely remember hearing him say, "What the hell are you doing?" But I thought he was just talking to our cat, so I passed right back out. My boyfriend said the guy was wearing a face mask that was pulled down, and he was stumbling over his words and said something along the lines of, "I'm supposed to be here?" They said just knock and come in. And my boyfriend told him to get the hell out and that he had the wrong place. And the guy then backed off into the hallway out of our apartment complex. The guy said something like, "They told me room number 350 or something like that, but I couldn't find it. They wouldn't give me an exact address." My boyfriend then threatened to call the police if he didn't leave, and thank God he actually left. Personally, I think he should have called the police anyways, but I'm not really sure what good it would have done at this point. I know I'm probably being completely paranoid, but I keep thinking about what if this man thought I was home alone, since my boyfriend used to work every Saturday night until recently. Our curtains in the bedroom were cracked, and he could have seen me sleeping in bed and thought I was alone. The way he was stumbling over his words trying to come up with a reason that he walked into our apartment does not sit right with me at all. Especially since he said they wouldn't give him an exact address. Then why would he have gone directly to our door? My boyfriend didn't hear him trying random doors or jiggling our neighbor's handles to see if they were unlocked. So it seems as if he went directly to our door. What if he knows my routine? I know he could have been genuinely telling the truth and was supposed to meet up with someone, but the whole thing has me so freaked out. How am I not gonna overthink this in today's world as a woman? What if he didn't even knock, but my boyfriend just thought he did and it matched his story? I just keep thinking about what if my boyfriend wasn't home. I would have slept right through this man opening our door. Who knows what he could have done? I like to think I'm normally very cautious, but I'm definitely going to only load up my laundry in my car when it's light outside, even if that means loading it up the day before. I feel so unsafe, and I'll be talking to my landlord about this. I know there's nothing he can do about it, but I would really feel wrong not making him at least aware of the situation in case it happens to someone else. Does anyone have any advice or precautions that I should take? I just want to know if there's any red flags someone else might think of that I haven't. Of course, now I'll be checking 10 times per day if my damn door is locked, and I'll likely not be able to sleep without a weapon near me. Earlier today, about a minute after I just locked the door from bringing in groceries, I heard a very faint knock on our front door for a few seconds. I approached it to see who the hell was there, and I heard the bottom lock unlock itself and the knob twist, but the deadlock kept the door in place. I had my hand on my concealed pistol while my heart was racing really fast. I looked outside, and he just stood there, backed away, and then relocked the door and walked off. The person I saw was the same maintenance man who's been coming to our place the past month to do work, but every time he showed up it would be uninvited, and he would never stop knocking, as well as stand outside the apartment for up to 15 minutes once until confronted. And when I told him that he couldn't just show up uninvited with zero notice, he smirked. Yesterday, my mom caught him staring at her for an uncomfortable length of time while she was doing some car cleaning. Just freaking why? This guy has been giving me massive creep vibes from day one, and now unsurprisingly he's trying to break in uninvited. A little while ago, I was living in an apartment complex in Toms River, New Jersey. I lived in a complex where there were doors facing the street, and when you went through the doors, there was a set of stairs going up to the top apartment, and to the side of the stairs was a small hall leading to the bottom apartment. I live in the top apartment, and my downstairs neighbor was a woman probably 10 to 12 years older than me. We had a very neighborly relationship, saying hi when passing, chatting for a bit when we bumped into each other, etc. After I'd been living there for 3 months, I could tell she had a crush on me because it seemed she would go out of her way to be outside her apartment whenever I was, and she would get flirty with me. It got to a point where I knew if I left my apartment I'd bump into her, and I'd have to do mental preparation for these encounters and come up with a plan to be able to move on quickly because she would want to talk for long periods of time. Anyway, I was dating someone at the time, and I made sure to mention this to my neighbor since I thought it would make her back off, but it didn't. My then girlfriend and I had only started dating shortly after I moved into this complex. So 3 months into our relationship, we decided to finally take our relationship to the next level and start being intimate for the first time. So we made plans for her to come over, and she would plan to spend the night. Now, I'm really cheesy and I try to do romantic things, so she was coming over at 10 p.m. that night, and I was vacuuming and cleaning at like 8 p.m. All of a sudden, there's a knock at my door. I see through the peephole that it's my neighbor. I thought maybe she was going to tell me I was being too loud with my cleaning, but I'm a pretty considerate neighbor, and I didn't think I was being too loud. So I open the door and she has a smile on her face, and she just starts making small talk with me. Things like, "So I hear you're cleaning up here. You expecting company tonight? Is it your girlfriend? Are you guys gonna have sex?" Like, it felt like she was interrogating me and asking me things that she didn't need to know. I told her that I was having company over and that we would keep it down, and that she didn't need to know who was coming over. She responded by saying that she felt that she should know who was coming over because the noise could impact her. I don't remember how I got her to leave, but I finally did. My girlfriend came over, and we did indeed have sex. Like I said though, I'm a considerate neighbor. I keep things down. But there are some things you can't exactly prevent, like the sound of the bed moving as you're doing the deed. Anyway, the next morning my girlfriend had work, so she got ready and I walked her down to her car. I had the day off, so I was going to get some gaming in and reflect on the incredible evening that I had previously. When I got back to my apartment, there was my neighbor waiting at my door. She told me that she had heard everything last night, and it had sounded incredible. She did not hold back telling me what she was doing to herself while she was listening to me and my girlfriend. She would go as far as to say things like, "At about 11 I heard this noise. I can only imagine she was doing this to you or you were doing this to her." And I was very creeped out. I told her that she needed to stop or else I would have to tell management that she was invading my privacy. Needless to say, my girlfriend and I never did it at my place again unless I knew that my neighbor was out of town. I told my girlfriend all about it and she was furious, understandably. She even confronted my neighbor and told her that it was not okay that she did that, nor was talking to me so much. Since we never did it in my apartment again during the year I lived there, I just had to put up with running into my neighbor and her insisting on having long conversations. I was very happy when I moved to another town.